let's have a quick little chat about, I don't even know what to call them, high performance. I, for me personally, I call them fancy pants. So, and part of that is to kind of take some of the steam out of the projected esteem, sort of, that it's not as high performance as the company may market. I'll say that. So this is a studio grade clarity 28 millimeter silk dome tweeter. It's the RPT 28. I haven't even looked at the price sheet to see what they go for. Right away though, it says it plays down to 1.5K. So probably usually when a speaker company, and this is true of a lot of speaker companies, especially like when you see Parts Express. I really don't like it when they do Parts Express. And remember that the Dayton Audio brand is Parts Express's like side project. And so they've tried to spin it off to make it look like it's fancy pants. And then that way they can extract more money out of you, especially if you're a DIY. Again, and they use Parts Express as sort of the distribution system, but also, since we have your ear, instead of pointing you to like some other brand, they're like, we've built these just for you. And then, whatever, they just go to China and get something knocked off. A lot of companies like Recoil also do the same thing. And that's why a lot of times you'll see a product that looks very similar, like say to Stereo Integrity, right? This grill looks very similar to Stereo Integrity. It's sometimes it's because there's a patent that's been authorized for royalties directly from China, and then they'll make different versions for different companies, and they'll just put their brand on it and things like that. Not saying this is a bad product. I'm just saying it may not be what you're looking for. I always do a sweep on the speaker, and on a tweeter and a mid, what you want to do is find the FS, and then again, this is just it's not a firm rule, but it's it helps guide you to make better choices. The guide that they give, Vance Dickinson gives in the loudspeaker cookbook, is to be at least 1 octave above the FS. So if the FS is 1.5 kilohertz, 1500 hertz, you want to double that. That's an octave, okay? And so then you want to cross this up at about 3K. So what I look for in a high performance tweeter, and when I look at high performance, I'm talking about top of the line stuff from, say, like ScanSpeak, right? 20 years ago, ScanSpeak was making stuff that nobody else was. And what's happened since then is people just, in all sorts of companies, they go, well, let me see what's so fancy pants about ScanSpeak. And they look at it, and then they send the sample to China, and then China's like, oh yeah, we can do this, this, and this. So even if the driver was made in Denmark, as if somehow that makes it better, they can make an exact copy and even modifications to it in China. And so that's why nobody even bothers to make stuff anymore. It's like, just make it in China, and then you usually have the patent in China, and then you authorize royalties to whatever factories you want to get paid on. So Scott, not Scott Dildo, Scott Atwell, formerly of Phi, who founded Phi, was smart when he tooled up the 12-inch TI frame, his version, which is a 6-spoke version, and looks more like the patent that he bought at the TC Sounds auction, which was for the 15 and the 18. It's a better driver, or it's a better frame than the original, which is only 4-spoke, and the 4-spoke is not real heavy duty. And if you've seen some of the stuff at Phi, it's pretty heavy duty. So it was a good idea that Scott did that. And then what Scott did was he had the patent out of China, a global patent, and then the factory that makes them simply pays Scott a royalty. And usually you don't want to take cash, because then that makes a demand for something that's rare. It's better to just take credit. So let's say he's paying $5 a frame. Then he gets like a discount, right? Because he doesn't need to pay the royalty, and then he uses that money to buy frames. Do you see how that works? And so it's actually better for China, and it's better for him, and it makes the tooling, the product available to everyone. And so that's typically what a lot of speaker companies have been doing lately. And I think that's what Recoil has done with this one. Again, it's a great product. I'm sure I would love to do some testing on it. I just don't think it's a premium product because it doesn't have a low FS. Even though all of the marketing for it, hi-fi rear chamber tweeter. Now, does it look good? Yes. Does it have a metal base? Yes. We did this 10 years ago, 15 years ago with the GONZO tweeter. So, and all we did was find the company that was making the tweeters for LPG. LPG was a German company that was making for Diamond Audio, and I think Matasound carried them as well. It was just a pretty much generic tweeter. Diamond Audio is the one that decided to make it their tweeter, even though it was made by LPG. And then since then, LPG did the smart move, which was they moved manufacturing over to China, which does open up the tooling to the rest of the world. But again, it was a good platform, and we were able to use it. And we at the time, this was again 15 years ago. We came out with an aluminum dome version, a titanium dome version, and a silk dome version. To me, the silk dome version sounded the best because it had the lowest FS, which is right at about 1100, 1150 hertz. And the reason why you wanted to cross it low at the time is because we had a palette of the ADS crossovers from the ADS-T buyout back in 2003. And the ADS used a really high quality looking Neo tweeter that ADS-T used across their platforms on the... I don't think they ever came out with it for PPI. They came out with it for the Orion HCCA tweeter, and then they also used it on the Orion Intense tweeter. They probably just used a different version, and then they used it on the ADS, and then they used a similar version that they used for the Orion NT. They used on the ADS PX, which was their top of the line. And all of them pretty much did the same thing. And the magic about them was that they used a diaphragm that was made from cellulose, which is film material. What they make Fujifilm, Kodak film. In fact, the diaphragms were made from Kodak. And so when after the buyout, after the auction of ADS-T, filing for bankruptcy, and then me buying up a bunch of stuff, we contacted Kodak, and they refused to sell to us until we paid ADS-T's bill. And so then that's when we did our search to China, and we found this. I think we went through DFS sales. I don't think Don is doing anything anymore, but again, this was over 15 years ago. And it's great to see a product that looks very similar, but again, doesn't have the low FS that I like to look for. An example of having a good low FS would be the, let me look it up here real quick. MS275. I did a review of that a couple weeks back, and again, I'm sure you've seen this grill on other speakers, namely JL Audio, and it's probably made by the same factory that makes for Edge, and Edge may be in charge of making JL Audio's version. Okay, so there's a whole... Now, what's great about this speaker is that it has a low FS. All right, look at that FS. 225. So what you want to do is cross it an octave up. Let's just round up to 250 to be safe. So then you're rounding up, you're crossing up at about 500 hertz. And when you cross up like that, you typically want to average about a 12 dB slope. You can go another octave higher if you just decide to use this. I think my calculation on that was wrong. I think this is, it's a 56 microfarad, so that should be about 800 hertz for this. With a nice shallow slope for the crossover, this would work great. Now, what's great about using this is that you can use it with a mid bass that doesn't play very high. And so Curtis, the audio legend, Curtis Navarro, he wanted to get these for his, a Nissan Frontier. And so he's using them in the dash where it has a spot for a 3-inch, what was a mid tweeter. And that's exactly what this is. This is a little more powerful though because it has a Neo motor. But again, it has a low crossover point. And then he was looking for more mid bass. And what he had originally got was the MS8, which is just a mid. Even though Recoil calls it a mid bass, it's not really a mid bass. But again, a lot of companies use certain words as keywords so that you can find their product and buy it. But I want you to be an educated consumer about this stuff. And so I want you to understand what you're really buying. So what's great about this driver is that it plays all the way up to 20K. So it's good for tweet, but it has a really low FS. And I think the diaphragm is what, 70? Is it 70 millimeter? No, that's too big. 2.75. I can't remember what that is. So 50. It's probably like a 60 millimeter diaphragm. Let's see if it has. Now it's driving me crazy. Anyways, it has a larger diaphragm, so it has a lower FS, and that's another way to get something with a lower FS in a tweeter, right? And that's the idea behind, instead of the standard 25 millimeter, you go with a 28 millimeter or even a 30 millimeter. And again, the sort of the better of the product, the smaller the diaphragm you can get and still play low. And again, ScanSpeak, companies like ScanSpeak that I feel are leading edge, I think now has a low FS 3/4 inch tweeter, which I find fascinating. I would love to see how they do that. But so anyways, what's great about this is we ended up teaming up. I had them swap out the MS8, which is a mid. Let me show you that. Because he was complaining that he wasn't getting a real mid bass, and I said, well, you didn't use. They changed it to mid range. That's good. And it's just a PA mid. And so he was using this, wasn't getting any mid bass the way that he liked, and so we switched to the RW8, which is their that's their Echo series, which is an entry level. There it is. And then we did the D2. It doesn't really matter, D2, D4. But we did the D2 because I think what I had him do was he just used passive crossover, which is the capacitor on the tweeter. And then you let the mid bass in this case, because it's being used as a mid bass, just play open. And so then you just put a high pass you can go kind of low. You can do like 80 or 70 because this thing's meant to play down to 30 hertz, and it does. And you can follow the same rules because it's being used as a mid. You could do the same thing. So the FS on this is at least 30, and so then you double, go one octave up, and so 60 would be really good to use this as a mid bass. And that's what he ended up doing. And so this one, I don't know if it shows. I would have to do a microphone test to find out what it plays up to. But typically what we found whenever I was developing the GONZO components was that typically a mid like this, whether it's 6-inch goes a little bit higher, 6.5-inch goes a little bit higher, 8-inch a little bit lower, but typically they cross up at about 2K. And so they'll play up to 2K. And so this with the MS275 is going to sound pretty magic, because this thing can get down if you want. If you want to just do it full range, it sounds even better because it gives you a little bit of that oomph, especially if it's in phase with your subwoofer. Then it gives just a little bit more displacement, a little more cone area, a little more SPL in that first octave, 2 octaves, 20 to 40 and then 40 to 80. So, but and then the RMS is 200 RMS. Again, as a mid bass, that's pretty darn good. And so that's what we ended up doing. But I get a lot of people that ask me questions about, just because it's new doesn't make it. It doesn't make it better, and it also doesn't make. And this is true of any brand. It doesn't make it better, and it also doesn't make it right for your particular situation and what you seem to be wanting to do, if that makes sense. So, but feel free to go back and review this video. Feel free to, I'll put a link to the loudspeaker cookbook, which is a free PDF from Audio Heritage, and shout out to them for hosting that link for years. And also, just a quick note, if you ever want to look at a book, just type in the title and then put PDF at the end, and you should be able to pull it up and find a version of it online. And a lot of times you don't have to pay. It's just free. Somebody just puts it on a server, and what do you know? It's free information for everybody, just like the library. It's amazing. But yeah, I wanted to show you that and show you that there are other solutions than just what a company says, it's good. Like, a lot of people think that like a 3-way is better than a 2-way. And it depends. Is it better at playing, from the low end, let's say 80 hertz to 20K? What's better, 2 speakers or 3 speakers? It shouldn't matter if everything is, with all things being the same. Some people think they get a little more volume by using a little more SPL by using a 3-way. Personally, I've been, the way that I was taught and the way that it sort of makes sense for me is you want to go as simple as possible. And so using something like this, full range, and then crossing up with the MS275 with a simple capacitor, and then that's it. That gets you all the way from 30 to 20K. That is amazing, and it's super simple. And that would also be really good for even home audio. And then if you do want to do something, there's a couple ways to control the output of the tweeter, either with an L-pad or by biamping. And I think what we did for Curtis is we got the D2, we wired it in series, and then I used the I guess Mama's home, and wired it in series for a 4-ohm load. And then what we did was I gave him a dedicated amp just for the mids, and he's going to just control the volume on that, the mid bass. And so what that does is it's a 4-channel, and he's bridging out both halves, and each 8 would get half of the amp. And we're using a DI 550.4, which is the one that Big D recently reviewed, and it does like a good 600 watts, which is plenty for this. And if he wanted to, he could put both halves in. I think that one on the front channels, it has a forced high pass, and so you just turn it all the way down, the high pass. And then the channels 3 and 4, you just put on full range. Either way, it's going to be about the same. And then you use the passive crossover for the tweeter. And if the levels end up working out the same in that particular situation, that's great. If you're using it in like a home audio situation, sometimes you may want to either use an L-pad to kind of tame down the tweeter. If you want to use just one amplifier, if you want to use 2 amplifiers, fucking go for it. And then, do DSP and all that kind of stuff. But again, I want you guys to read the book, and I know it hurts your brain. A lot of you guys complain. They're like, this is a lot of information. I'm like, yeah, it's a lot of information. And if you get through it and you finally understand it, we can have a better conversation about what is a good policy, what is a good attempt, and more than anything, and that's for your own projects. And once you get good at mastering your own projects, that's when you realize, and also about getting good deals on just equipment in general, that's when all of a sudden the coin turns over, and you're able to present those skills and your findings and your experience to help other people. See how that works? And so the sooner that you master these skills, the sooner that you master what a company is actually describing on their website and through their products, the quicker you become a better consumer, making better choices, and also just watching out for pitfalls that usually fancy pants brands like JL Audio, Hertz, and those type of companies who depend on looking pretty, looking fancy, and then backing it up, because what they're really doing is backing up their own bullshit with high pricing. They're like, wow, if you want that, because this one is equal to, what is it, the W0 from JL Audio. So it's funny, let's see if they fixed the website. No, it still goes to Garmin. And they want to sell you a smartwatch, because again, those things cost like a nickel to make, and then they can sell it to you for like $500. Car audio. So that particular one for the RW8, I sell right now for $35 shipped, and that's for a used model. And then if you compare it to, that's actually not bad for a tweeter for $75. See, there you go. Look at that. What do you know? Very similar. Let's do. Does it have subwoofers? I don't see subwoofers. There we go. It's the W. Oh, they brought back the W1. They don't have the W. Maybe it's the W1 then. There's W0. And so we're looking at. Do they even make it? They don't even make a an 8. They make a 10. Would they make this difficult? They're not gonna give me the specs. 300 watts. That's not quite a comparison, and that's the W0. I think we were comparing them to the W1 series. Let's see if W1 has an 8. Where was it at? Come on. What you'll love. I don't care. Again, all these specs and all this kind of stuff is all just marketing. It's to you know, pile on top of. There we go. So the 8-inch is 150 watts. So it's not even as powerful as the RW8. And then if you just look at the price, it's $200. Yeah. And the RW8, which does the same job, in fact, it does a better job because it handles more power, probably has a bigger voice coil as well. I think this one has like a 1.5-inch voice coil, while the RW8 has a 2-inch voice coil. And handle, this one is continuous powder. Let's say they're just being conservative on the rating, so it ends up being the same. So potatoes, tomatoes, tomatoes. It's still $200. And I think new, the RW8 is still only, I think, no more than $50. And let's go check that out. What is it? Recoil Audio USA. Recoil Audio USA is the USA retail site. And so what that's supposed to do is that's where dealers are supposed to send people so that they can go, see, $45. So they go, see, I'm giving you a good price. And so what the dealers do is either match that price or give it to you for slightly less. Even though if you do a little more research, you can see Steven's postings on eBay. And if you know me, then you know I'm already doing it for $35. And that's for a used version that's tested and it's basically new. And it was a return from Amazon. And it still carries a warranty. And again, Recoil still has the policy if you buy something off of me or if you buy something off of Steven, off of the eBay store, if you have any problems, the quickest thing for you to do is instead of going through eBay is actually a nightmare. The best thing for you to do is simply buy the product if you can find it on Amazon. If it's already available, then great, problem solved. Buy a new one, make sure you have Amazon Prime, and then send back the dead one. That's it. That's the quickest and easiest way to do it. And because again, Recoil does not have the staff to do all kinds of other stuff. Some of the deals on eBay, if you want to go through that process, some people feel, more secure. They're like, well, I feel like I'm stealing. You're not stealing. You're helping everybody out by doing that. Now, whether or not other companies have that policy, I don't know. But I know for Recoil, this is the policy that they have because they just let Amazon do the heavy lifting for logistics. So for shipping and handling and stuff like that, for things like that. Again, if the product is not available on Amazon, then just contact them direct or go through eBay and they'll take care of you. They'll get you a new one. So anyways, I think I just wanted to do that for some of the new products for Recoil Audio USA. The new dealer price sheet is out and there's a lot of new products. The new dealer sheet is much more reasonable. And so I will be back to pushing it even more and then comparing it to things like we just did here with JL, where it's a as good or better product for a fraction of the price. And that's what I've really grown to love about Recoil and also other brands. There's a lot of really great high performance brands out there. I talk about Scar a lot. I talk about Rockville a lot. Because again, these companies are all just going to China and they go, what do you got? What are you making for other people? And then they go, okay, that looks good. And then you put that, that motor with that frame, and you go, okay, how much is a branded boot? And they go, oh, that's another $1,200 just for the tooling. And you go, sounds good. Because the boot, they don't charge you anymore for the boot. The boot is like $2. And, but to pay for that tooling so that it's branded is like about anywhere from $1,200 to $1,500. So, because we wanted to get the 4-gauge push terminals as the set, the little plastic thing that holds them together the way that Sundown does. And they said we could get it, but they said they wouldn't do a generic. They wanted, I think it was, they just wanted a little more money out of me. But they wanted another like $1,500 to put the logo, our logo on the terminal. And I was just like, bummer. And so we ended up just talking to one of the build houses, and I go, hey, do you have a whole bunch of those loose 4-gauge spring terminals? And they're like, yeah. I go, how many is in a bag? And they're like, 500 in a bag. I said, okay, send me 2 bags. And it got included with our shipment. So, but, and again, it's a really low cost solution, and some of the prices, I don't mind giving away some of my purchase sheet that I'm getting ready to buy from Lord Base. If you go to miscellaneous, these used to be $5 a pair, but now they're $9 a pair. But the good news is that they offer these now. This is, I think, I've seen these before. I can't remember. See how these have the little knurl? Quit doing that. See how these have the little knurl? I actually prefer that, but mostly because of the polarity markings. This is just a little rubber band. These don't have that, but this looks more similar to the terminals that come with, who was using them? I want to say JL Audio, but I think JLs are a little bit different. So maybe it's some of the lower end models. But again, is this a good deal for what's out on the market? Yes. Is it a little too much for my taste? Yes. So it's just one of those things where that's where me and Recoil want to sort of, slip into your DMs and offer you something that is both more cost effective, like a better value, and is also still high performance. So, and again, nobody needs a 4-gauge terminal, but sometimes it just gives it a good look. And it's also nice to be able to put 2 12-gauge wires in there and not have to worry. So, and of course, you guys know me that I prefer spring terminals because they give a constant pressure on the wire. There's no torquing, there's no over torquing. Those, you can still break these. And I've talked to you guys about this, about putting try not to, and look out for brands that align the terminals top bottom. You want it to make sure that they do them side to side rather than top bottom. And that has to do with orientation of the logo. And so, because a lot of times if they're top bottom, I think JL still does top bottom, is when you're putting when you're putting the woofer into the hole, and if you drop it, bam, these just snap off. And so again, that's a little tiny detail that if you just overlook, it can cause some problems and dismay and, a delay in you getting your base the way that you want. So also the ones that I import have better, longer solder tabs that we do. And I don't have all my solder tabs, but I talked to Big Perm over in New Mexico, and we're going to go, I think the week mid-March, we're going to drive a truck over and pick up the rest of the speaker building stash, because he's out of commission right now on his health, and he's got to get another surgery on his back, and so he's not building. And so I said, hey, you want to do consignment on all those parts? Basically, we're going to do an inventory, and then when he's ready to build, I know exactly what he gave me and then what I owe him. But what it does is it gives me access again to all those parts that I had, and then of course I give you guys access as well. So that's going to be fun. Again, we're rebuilding. I'm still looking for properties in Texas because I think that's the best bet. I think we're going to find a great warehouse, but I just wanted to give you this idea on Recoil Audio and new products and new tweeters and stuff like that. And again, we'll talk more. And if you guys want to have questions and just really kind of deal with me personally, if you have personal questions, you can of course text me. and it is of course best, and you get the most attention if you send me money. Mostly just because my time gets used up very quickly. And if you want to send a donation, that's fine. I'll tell you how to do that. But text me direct and get in my phone so that we can have a conversation and we can try to make a friendship. That's what I really appreciate about you guys. So 602-312-6504. Again, that's 602-312-6504. Text me your name and your shipping address. I will add you to the phone. Sheri may add you to the phone. And then once we do that, then we can go over your options or questions or whatever you have. And a lot of times I love making recommendations on something that I don't have, but I know where to get it. And so, and again, I support Lord of Bass. He's in this for profit. And so if $9 sounds expensive to you, don't buy them. But compare to everybody else that's selling these. Oh, that's right. Nobody else is selling these. So all of a sudden, $9 becomes really, really affordable. So now, would I love to come in and sell these for $5 a pair? Sure. But it's not going to be on a website, right? Because that causes problems. And so, again, I want to do a lot of private stuff, not commercial stuff. I don't want to do stuff in the commercial space. That's a whole other genre. So, but anyways, I love you guys. I will talk to you later. If you have any more questions, again, feel free to text me. And you can also tune in on Sundays at 6 p.m. Arizona time for our live stream and ask me any questions. All right, take care.